Hello and welcome everyone to this installment, this workshop today on the quadfurcation of data within, well, it says here within GA4. I think my scope of the talk changed since it was first announced, and it's now is about the quadfurcation, which is a real word, as we'll cover a bit later on, but not just GA4. It's a whole range of tools we're going to go through today. We're going to have people here from Snowplow and from 18internet/Piano as well to talk through their points. So definitely not just GA4 today. This note for yourselves, if you're new to this platform, bottom right-hand corner, we've got three little symbols you can click on. You can give me or the other speakers a bit of an applause, a thumbs up. We can act quite quizzical. Not quite sure what's going on. There's an option there. As I always say at the start as well, two big things. One is this is being recorded. Please be conscious of that. And it's always good if I drop into the general chat just to say hello to everyone and where you're from, which country you're from, because we have people joining from all over the world, and that's always quite exciting. But to get things going, let me share my screen. And yes, this title's better, the quadfurcation of digital analytics tools. G'day, my name is Peter. I am an Australian. The accent comes through pretty broad and thick. I was living in London for 16 years and established myself in the digital analytics community there. But I'm now in Haarlem in the Netherlands, making a home here instead. I've been working in this field for the past 15 years, including I started my own agency, Adobe Analytics, back 11 years ago, merged at one point. We got acquired by IEMA 3 years ago and exited that last year. So I'm now working for myself again, back freelancing under ZHS Orchards, and I'm also the founder of MeasureCamp, a digital analytics unconference, which if you haven't heard of, you should be looking up right now. It's a great event, a great way of showing knowledge back and forth. These workshops are running every 2 weeks. It's my way of sharing my ideas, as not everyone reads blog posts. Some want to listen to a talk instead. I could put into a formal course, but my ideas are a bit too scattered around different areas. They wouldn't translate that well to a formal course. So hence do this approach instead. We're having for about 45 minutes. I put the deck together for today. I realize it could be a 1 to 2 hour conference talk to go through it in detail. I won't do that. We might go through some sections a bit faster. It does keep the MeasureCamp style though. So you can ask questions at any time. Please do so in the Q&A on the right-hand side. You can do so in the general chat. Bit hard for me to pick up on, but please try there as well if you want to. Or alternatively, feel free to raise your hand. It's one of the options in the menu bar at the bottom of the screen. And if you do that, I'll bring you up on stage and we can chat back and forth there directly. I want the session to be practical. I mean, here we've got different digital analytics tools. I've had feedback from some experts on some tools. We've got Jordan and Nick joining us though from a couple of vendors to actually give their point of view as well. So you can hear from the actual experts themselves. And of course, while I'm sharing my knowledge here, I'm trying to actually get these ideas challenged back. This idea of quadfurcation, look for your feedback and your thoughts on that. Is it a real thing or not? Is 4 the right number? Should it be 2? Should it be 10? What the right number is? And of course, if anyone finds this idea interesting, wants to apply in their own business, please get in touch to see how I can help out. But 3 parts here. The first part is on the concept. The second part will be a quick run through of the 4 different levels. And the final section is a run through tool by tool, what they offer for each of the 4 levels, this quadfurcation of digital analytics tools. But going back in history a bit, back to when some of you were probably in school still, depressingly for me, and I was kicking off my career in digital analytics. And back then it wasn't digital, it was web analytics only. And the tools back then, they had a single UI for everyone to use. It wasn't one size fits all solution. And this, to me and to others, has limitations because with everyone using the same tool, it meant it didn't actually quite fit anyone. There are people in an organization, hard as it can be for me to believe, who dislike using data, who can find web analytics tools, and they're much simpler back then to be overwhelming. But they were forced to go into these big, complex, complicated tools with a lot of data and try to make sense of it. And there are other people who can make data dance, do circles, loop the loop, anything they want to do. But they were also forced to use these tools with these structures that didn't quite make sense to them, and they couldn't get the full levels of what they wanted to do. So this was frustrating, but it was the situation as it was back then, 10, 15 years ago. And then with Google Analytics coming along, one of the senior people in our industry, Eric Peterson, who runs Web Analytics Demystified, wrote numerous books, put out this blog post back in, you can see here, 2010. Quite weirdly, this website now appears to be down the last few days. If so, you have to buy the Wayback Machine and still read the original blog post. But Eric had the idea going, with Google Analytics being released, it was a very simple tool. This is way back 2010. Most of the features we see nowadays and take for granted weren't available back then. When it was first released, there was no segments, no event tracking, no customer reports. 2010, not quite so sure, but and with this coming out, other tools, the paid solutions, were up against it. They had a free alternative, and they offered a range of solutions in their one UI for everyone, but they're often too hard for the non-analysts to be able to use. So Eric could see a solution, what he called the coming bifurcation in analytics tools, where a company actually had two tools on their website at the same time. They had Google Analytics and a paid solution. And Google Analytics was going to be there for the non-data analysts, people who weren't as comfortable in data. They could go in and look at a light level, do light analysis, look at the key reports, key information, see what's going on, not be overwhelmed, and therefore get more use from the tool. At the same time, Google Analytics, especially back then, just was not powerful enough. It couldn't answer the real business questions that the web analysts wanted to be able to answer. So we saw the most powerful tools, the most powerful versions of the web analytics tools, then being used as well. And this was back at the site catalyst, I think it was Insights tool. Originally, it was a website story, which is where it came from. And these give you access to raw data. So you really manipulate it, get into it, create big models, forecasts, explore data in detail. And that was what we thought the web analysts want to use. So we saw this as a great solution for companies, GA, and the web analytics tool, the specialized tool side by side, providing a solution for everyone. I'm not going to read through all this, but here was how he thought it could work. With the big barrier being, you've got two different tools, different data sets, different bits of information, not agree with each other on the website. That's not good. But he thought he had a simple solution for internal users and a really powerful solution for analysts. And that's great. And I read this and went, that makes sense to me. That makes total sense. But over the years, I thought it didn't quite go far enough. The two levels, they weren't enough. And this, I wrote this blog post in 2014. I remember it well, actually. It was after a super week down a cafe somewhere. Now I took it away, I've been inspired, and wanted my thoughts out. Because what I was seeing was, even for simple tool, and Google Analytics 2014 had got more advanced. In my opinion, it offered too many options for the casual user, the non-data savvy people. And I think if a tool comes across as overwhelming, because it actually offers too many features, it doesn't get used. The way to make the tool and the data get more used is to remove the complexity, to remove the features, remove the options, give as few options as possible, and therefore get used more. So my idea was the quadfurcation. 4 levels I'll go into in more detail in a minute. The first level was a dashboarding level and simple reports. Very top level, not analysis, it is definitely reporting only. Second level, a simplified analysis solution. It was the GA, but a GA without custom reports, without custom segments. Maybe some set segments, a set of reports, ability to drill in, less reports you can see in GA now, making it quite simple to use. Not for the analysts, but for the product managers, marketeers who are comfortable with data, want to do something like self-service without being overwhelmed by it. Then we have level 3, the level for me, to be honest, for web analysts who thought like me, a slicing and dicing tool. Whole set of features, bring data in different ways, apply different features, slice and dice it, explore the data. With the fourth option that Eric had mentioned, it's still outstanding, the raw data, the data for the data scientists, the analysts wanted to dig into it more than I did, to spend 1-2 weeks answering a single question, that was still there as well. So that's the quadfurcation, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The tool, and whether this was one tool or 4 different tools, that could vary by company. Ideally, it's one source of data. This is what I thought every company needed to get full value from the data. By having the simpler options, they would get used more. By having the powerful options, you can answer more questions. You're winning every way, basically. So again, drop in the comments, the Q&A section, or raise your hand. Agree, disagree. While you're doing that though, as a quick run through, because I want to leave as much time as possible to go through the different tools. These 4 levels in more detail. So level 1, standard reporting. It's a reporting layer for dashboards, standard reports there. Anyone can use it, but it meant you'd have to log into, potentially, you didn't even have to log into a Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics, Site Catalyst back then, into a tool and see so many options, so much data, which could overwhelm you. I wanted like almost a barrier there between the complexity to make it simple. So you couldn't drill into the data. Maybe you could change the date range, apply a segment, maybe. That was all. And you couldn't even answer business questions with this. But you could tell, what's performance this week, same as last week? If it is, great. That's been a really good 2 to 5 minutes, get on with your life. If it's better or worse than last week, you want to know why. And that's if you escalate it. Going to the next stage of the reports of the tool, to level 2 with this, or by escalating it, get in touch with the analyst or the relevant marketeer, product manager, developer to look in more detail for you if you're the CEO. That was my level 1. Level 2, simple analysis. It is an analysis tool, so you're meant to be able to explore the data here, but with limited features, limited reports. You don't have 100 reports to choose from, you have a dozen or 20 only, the key reports. It's meant to be used for people who are not analysts, who are fine with data but aren't analysts themselves, don't want to dig deeper. So you're deliberately trying to shrink the tool down to encourage people to actually use the tool, to not be overwhelmed by it. You would have more than dashboards, you would have reports, which you could drill into and look at trends and apply segments and change the date range. So almost the business questions you answer every day, week, month, that would appear at this level so that people could self-service and get the answers themselves. Then we hit the more ad hoc questions. The questions you get thrown at you as an analyst from all parts of the company going, what about this? How's that work? How do we use this website feature? Why am I looking at this content? So the solution here would then be used by analysts only. It would have a full range of features, functionality, and meant to be as flexible as possible. This is really, for me, for anyone who's been doing this for 10 years, thinking back to Site Catalyst Discover was what I think about at the time. With choose your dimensions, choose your metrics, create your own data tables. and drill into it and drill into it and drill into it and visualize it any way you want to and apply that segment, this segment, hit-based, session-based, user-based, whatever you want to do. So basically a chance to really exploit data in a very ad hoc manner as much as you wanted to, but within still a UI, a mechanism without using code. Which left you at a fourth level, the deep dive analysis, which is pretty much, it's the raw data. It's been used by data scientists or analysts who want to manipulate raw data, which like the same thing or different things, but that sort of level of doing it is raw data. Using R, using Python, SQL, you're writing your own code to manipulate data to basically build your own features, your own explorations, your own models, your own forecasts, doing what you want to do. Doing that, I don't know, 5% of business questions that are just so custom that you could not do within a tool itself. And again, that's my 4 levels. And a feature of that is that with these 4 levels, I think a business should first make sure they've got number 1 in place. Then when 1's in place, put 2 in place. And with your first 2 in place, then you're trying to figure out you've got a 3 in place. And you're actually hiring then your analyst to actually look at 3. But until you've got all 3 in place, you shouldn't worry about 4. My experience with companies who hire the data scientists ahead of the digital analysts, who have raw data available for data scientists, but no dashboards for senior management teams, that goes wrong. Build from the bottom up. The fundamentals in place. Think about getting the data across as much of the company as possible first. And then layer on to get to more and more custom specific questions, more advanced questions as time goes on. Any thoughts on that? While I'm on a drink of water. On these 4 levels, do you agree, disagree? Do you want to clarify how the 4 levels work? Do you want to drop in the chat what country you're from? So I think no one did that yet. If this is working properly, that is. No questions. So this final stage, part 3. What does these 4 levels look like for each tool? Are they offered by the different digital analytics tools that are in place? All right, the first one looking at here, Google Analytics, the current version, Universal Analytics. For the standard reporting layer, you've got the Google Analytics dashboards. If anyone uses them, they were okay if they had to be used, but the much better version now, Data Studio dashboards. You create dashboards as the analyst for the management team, for everyone else in the business. You're also creating a custom UI as limited as possible, as little functionality as possible, but so I can actually see performance. That's how GA is meant to be used, in my opinion. The simple analysis then is the Universal Analytics UI itself. Although for this, I'd actually want to be able to hide functionality and hide reports. I think the simple analysis level at its best would actually not allow you to do any custom reports, any custom segments, standard segments only, and it would actually hide half the reports available to you. That to me, adding in that customize the user interface feature for users would make it much more useful and used without a business. Alternatively, you can create a custom UI with this functionality within Data Studio. The ad hoc analysis, I thought Universal Analytics was okay. It isn't as powerful as Site Catalyst Discover from 10 years ago, but with custom reports, with the custom segmentation, what you do with segmentation, if you know what you're doing and how to dig into it, it was pretty powerful. There was very few questions that I couldn't answer with some tricks in the setup and in the using the tool. So it was quite good, could have been better. And the deep dive analysis stage, it's BigQuery. That's a mix of raw data. But of course, only if you have GA360. Without GA360, you're a bit stuck. There are various non-Google workarounds, setting the tags, duplicate, one to GA, one to data warehouse. OX had a solution that can sell you as well. We basically replicated the BigQuery solution for a lot less money. So universally, for me, it sort of had been bits of this, but didn't actually quite hit these levels properly, in my opinion. Anyone here, GA users, using Universal Analytics, love experience with that, want to chime in here to agree or disagree on my assessment of how you can offer the 4 different levels with GA with Universal Analytics? Please raise your hand if so. I've got an agreement to describe them. And for me, my level is level 3. That's where I want to live. Level 4, I want to find specialists to work for me, can do level 4 for me. Level 3 is for me, but I always want to set up level 1 and level 2 for the rest of the business. If you focus on just what you need, you're not doing enough. Think about the rest of the business, because the analysts, let's be honest here, we don't make decisions in the business. We provide the recommendations, the insights. The rest of the business takes the actions. So we have to make their lives as easy as possible for the data they need, as we need level 1, level 2 for themselves, and your answers delivered by level 3. Cool. I need some agreements. So moving on, I've got some great feedback from Piwik Pro, which is an open source tool. I've got the wrong open source background. I think the paid solution in there is part of it. It's also on-premise as well. And their solution to this. So standard reporting, you can build your own dashboards within Piwik. You can publicly share them, which is great. Or they would say, actually, Data Studio is a good solution for them as well. For the simple analysis level, they've got predefined Piwik Pro reports. And a great aspect here, you can hide reports for different users. So rather than showing a user to all 50 users, you actually only show it to the ones, all 50 reports. You only show, let's show you all 50 reports of all users, show the reports, show only the reports needed for each user. Quick moment from Jordan about people who known as Manamo. Actually, sorry, Jordan, not quite right. It's actually been forked off in different ways. There's now at least 2 versions of Piwik. There's Piwik Pro and Manamo. They're actually different tools now, both on the Piwik basis, if I've got that right. So it definitely doesn't still exist as Piwik Pro. As a lot, both Manamo and Piwik Pro are both built on the Piwik backend. They're actually different tools though. Unfortunately, my Manamo contact is on holiday right now. I couldn't get full feedback from him to do this as well. Next one, the big one, the big paid solution, the big gorilla, Adobe Analytics. Are there any Adobe Analytics users here who want to come involved in this discussion? Please raise your hand. But while you're doing that, this question went out on Twitter. I got some great feedback from people on this. This feedback, and Lucas is coming on board here and on stage. So Lucas, this is the feedback from directly here from Eric Matisov, who is the Adobe evangelist and Demo's guide to Adobe. Has my feedback as well. Lucas, do you want to give your thoughts on this though before I start talking anymore?
Yeah, I mean, your model works also for Adobe Analytics, I think. I would say that number 2, simple analysis and hoc analysis are now both analysis workspace. So analysis workspace makes both possible. So because there's no more discover anymore that you mentioned earlier. And
yeah,
analysis
I
workspace
think
is
the comment from Frederick was that Workspace does everything now. All 4 levels is just through Workspace.
Yeah, Workspace is now
differentiate here.
Yeah, the first 3 levels basically work in analysis workspace. The first level, standard reporting, like with dashboards and stuff, you partially also do that outside of Adobe Analytics, like if you want to integrate other data sources. But within Adobe Analytics, especially the simple analysis part, I think is now handled a lot better than it used to be with virtual report suites, where you can sort of limit the components for users. You can rename them the way that users understand them. So people open a workspace and they have just the components in the language and in the wording that makes sense to them, and they don't get flooded with that many components anymore. I think that's a big change to what Adobe Analytics used to be like in the past, where you just had thousands of components and you didn't know what the heck should I use now.
Yeah, definitely.
And
I mean,
for
I
deep
found
dive,
for me, you go.
sorry, and for the last part, deep dive, yeah, I think the data feed of Adobe Analytics is a bit harder to turn into useful table type of data like you would have in BigQuery, but it's definitely possible. I think that part is a bit easier if you go with GA, especially GA4 data. But therefore, the first 3 levels I think are better covered if you're in a well set up Adobe Analytics interface account.
Cool. Thanks for the feedback on that.
Welcome.
Because I mean, the first I was told was that Adobe Analytics Workspace is designed to cover all sort of bases these days. The differentiation I put into the notes here is that for standard reporting, you create your templated dashboards. So you really simplify that way. With simple analysis, it's still templated, but more of a customized reports rather than just dashboards, and include more functionality within that, more, I guess, filters and segments. Then the ad hoc analysis, no templates. Workspace has been designed from Discover, so you can do anything. And back in the day, my difference between GA and Adobe was always GA is simpler to use than an analyst. Adobe is more powerful for an analyst due to the exact functionalities. That's great to see it's still there. And the deep dive, they've got some data science tools built into it. The data feeds is that high-level raw data. And they mentioned another tool as well, another paid solution, Experience Platform or Data Science Workspace, which links into Jupyter Notebooks, and you can then, data scientists, do whatever you want to do. Which a lot of words I don't quite understand, but I've been assured I'm quite confident data scientists, this will give them everything they need. Cool. All right, so that's Adobe. Let me just take you off stage, Elizabeth. Thanks for your contribution there. And next we have AT Internet. So Nick hopefully is in the group here somewhere. I can see him. We're being joined here by Nicholas from AT Internet / Piano, who has shared some slides here that he's going to talk through and tell me to click through slide by slide. There is one at the end, Nick, which is a summary slide as well, just so you're aware.
Cool. Can you hear me? Is that okay?
Perfect.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Peter, for putting this on. I found like reading the blog post on Quadfurcation was kind of my sales pitch because I really believe in that, making the data accessible for everyone. I always like to say that you are not the user, and that holds true in design, also holds true in analytics. And in Piano Analytics, or formerly AT Internet, it's one of the core features, basically. So for the standard analysis level 1, there's this kind of your Google Data Studio or dashboard equivalent right within the platform, where you can customize your dashboards and build them. And the viewer doesn't really have any level of interactivity with the dashboard, which is supposed to be so, because they're just it just has the reporting purpose. And there's a set of tools there that Piano Analytics has for making data accessible for business users in a very limited scope. So one of them are predefined dashboards. The other one would be the second screenshot that you see on the right-hand side is a browser extension, which you can actually launch in the browser. So it helps editors, for example, if you write an article and you just want to see what's happening on your site, to actually get top-level metrics, very top-level metrics right within the browser without even confusing them to log on to a analytics user interface in the first place. And the same goes for alerting. I think a lot of other tools as well. I know that Adobe has it, and I'm not sure about Google, but alerting is basically another way of standard analysis, if you will, because it alerts users without giving them all the noise of the rest of the in terms of, thank you. In terms of the simple analysis, we have for the analysts in the tool, it's called Explorer, which kind of takes you by the hand and helps you explore the data on a more interactive level. So this still are predefined reports. However, they are somewhat customizable. So you can you can change some graphs, you can apply some segments, you can add more metrics, add more properties across the different reports, customize the views and save them for your own account. So you can like customize these reports in a limited way, but there is a certain level of customizability. And these are all integrated with audio reports, video tracking reports, e-commerce reports, and they also come with, that's why it's called Explorer, with advanced insights out of the box, like anomaly detection, contribution of what caused anomalies, attribution analysis. So basically all of your out-of-the-box stuff. A lot of the customers like it for the easy, because it's easily accessible. I personally am a level 3 person, just like Peter.
Yeah, and then like you're sort of noting there, for me in a way I still sort of think if you aim to these sort of extra advanced insights features, it could be off-putting. There's a fine line there between being useful and being overload of information.
Exactly. That is a very, very fine line. But again, I tend to get lost in the level 3, which is I think is for a lot of analysts, basically because I usually start out with having a question towards my data and I want an answer, and that answer is not catered to by pre-built reports or by simple analysis, because they're all pre-built, and I want to have a specific answer to my very specific question. And in Piano Analytics or AT Internet, we have a ad hoc data query, data mining feature. That means that you can query the database, all properties or dimensions, all metrics, all segments, custom standard, everything you have on the left bar, and then it's a graphical or a graphic user interface to kind of drag and drop and combine them and build your data set on the fly. With also limited, the main output is table, but it's limited. There are a couple of visualization techniques in there, or features in there as well. And it's always unsampled and real-time data. So this is a really nice way of even troubleshooting and debugging, because it's a 3-minute delay between collection and being available, fully processed and unsampled. So this is really like the one-stop shop for me personally, because it also creates an API on the fly, stuff like that. So this is really the go-to. But again, if I onboard customers, I don't make this available for business users or for even some editorial analysts who don't have the knowledge of how properties work, how metrics work, and how segments work. Right, and then of course deep dive is for me personally is. I like to be able to know that it's there, but I don't mess with it personally much. That's what there are experts for. And the raw data, of course, can go anywhere. But yeah, that would be level 4 in Piano Analytics.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nick. I mean, that's the quick sort of summary. And that's it. It feels like Piano Analytics, sorry, rather than AT Internet, has been quite nicely designed at those sort of 4 levels to actually hit the different needs, different people, which is amazing.
I think it's, yeah, I just thought that your blog post is basically our sales pitch. For us. Yeah.
Brilliant. And if you have any questions about Piano Analytics, AT Internet, afterwards, please ping Nick on the chat here. I'm sure we'll be happy to talk it through with you afterwards.
Cool. Thanks for.
I won't ask questions now just because I'm conscious of time.
Yep. Kick me off.
Done. Kicked off. Which brings into Snowplow Intelligence, which right now is currently blank for a good reason, because Jordan hasn't actually given me the information yet. But he's here right now, and should be raising his hand so I can find him. But otherwise, bringing up on stage now Jordan from Snowplow Intelligence, which I'm going to take some notes in the background here. And Jordan was quite aware of this, but actually I knew the founders, Alex and Yali, pre-Snowplow being released. And when they first announced it, I told them they were crazy. It was going to not work at all. And the reason behind that, and they've changed since that person said that, was because the original idea was to offer a solution at deep dive analysis level only. My argument was without the aggregations, without these 1, 2 levels, even to level 3, it wouldn't be useful for a business. But they've evolved since then. It's become a lot better, which I think Jordan will talk us through now while I take some notes. So across to you, Jordan.
Cheers, Peter. Yeah, thanks everyone. So Snowplow Analytics. I'll do a really quick sort of intro for people. I know not everyone might be super familiar with us as a product, but Snowplow Analytics is essentially a behavioral data collection platform. So you can collect behavioral data from a website or mobile apps or email services or anything like that, and then we load it through a real-time pipeline, either on Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud, and then load it straight into your warehouse, into a data warehouse. Excuse me, either BigQuery, Amazon Redshift, or Snowflake, where it's a row per event level format, so that you can do whatever you want with the data. We don't provide you a reporting or analytics or an analysis interface. You layer that on top of your data in whichever way you choose, whichever way you see most appropriate. So I think it's interesting, Peter, the way that you've ordered these four sections from standard reporting down to deep dive analysis. I think I certainly personally, and I think we as a business see it the other way around. We see it the other direction. So we start at the rawest data format. So the raw data that we provide when you set up our tracking and we send into your data warehouse, like I say, is 1 row per event, but it's extremely wide. So by default, there's at least 130 fields, but you can expand this with whichever custom events or entities you choose to track along with it. This is the raw log of everything that's happened, say on your website or your mobile apps. It's the most flexible. It's the data that you can do the most with, and this is the data that we expect data scientists to be accessing, and but also people who are modeling the data. I'll come on to that in a little bit. It is completely unopinionated, so it is ready for you to layer your opinion through the data using SQL in the data warehouse, which is the most common where people use it, but also using any other analysis tool you wish. So R or Python or any advanced analytics tools like SATA or something like that. And to your point though, Peter, about here people using data to answer a never before seen question that they might take one off over answering, where they need to collect some data, apply some business logic and apply some business opinion to the data to make it make sense for the question they're trying to answer. This is where we see most of our users working to answer these questions, the rawest form of the data that we provide, the event level data. People surface this, like I say, either using interfaces like R or Python, or they'll do the analysis in SQL themselves and then maybe surface it to an analysis tool like Tableau for that type of analysis. Moving up a stage into the ad hoc analysis. Now, if you were to do some ad hoc analysis, if you were in that section, you could use the raw event level data. That is obviously available to you at all times. The event level data never changes. We call it immutable. We basically say it's an unopinionated log of what's happened. But the downside with the raw event level data is that it can be unwieldy to work with. It's deliberately extremely detailed and granular and very small. We call it atomic. It's in the most atomic format of the data, but you don't always want to be working at the most atomic level of the data. Sometimes you want to work in these concepts like sessions or users, or live chat sessions, whatever type of things happen on your website. So what we generally see customers do, and Snowplow users do because we're open source as well, is we see users generate a set of tables in the warehouse from the raw event level data. So these might be just other types of event level data. So it might be a table full of link clicks. It might be a table full of various different e-commerce businesses. a table full, a row per conversion. It might be another type of table we see is like event stream tables. So basically you have like a user and then just every event that they've ever performed and the timestamp that those events were performed in. This way it helps you see like user journey types analysis. And obviously the types of like these kind of units of measurements we call them. So sort of like sessions, gaming, sessions playing a game, people performing, moving through sign-up flows or checkout flows. We sort of aggregate these a little bit and give them a little bit of opinion, and we have these tables sitting around. So this means that if someone needs to come and do some ad hoc e-commerce analysis, we have an e-commerce, you've built up and you've got an e-commerce events table ready there to go. It's already got the, you've already modeled out the product information that's attached to it. You've already modeled out and, layered in your business opinion around, selling price versus buying price or margin, the brands have been around the products. You've already layered those things. So those tables are now slightly easier to work with than the raw events data, but still in a raw enough format that they're flexible enough to answer any type of ad hoc e-commerce questions that you might have. Or if you've got these ad hoc user journey questions, the this then that analysis, I want to look at all the users who have seen an advertisement and then signed up within 7 days and look at and then split that by account value, something. You've got these event stream tables ready that you can just quite quickly again in tools like Tableau or Looker, we see a very common, or Power BI. Less so the statistical tools, so less so R or Python at this stage. At this stage, you can use, we also see people using product analytics tools for this type of thing. So Amplitude and Indicative are very popular for this type of stage as well. And this is important because otherwise, if you didn't layer this opinion over the data a little bit, every time you came to ask a user journey question or an ad hoc e-commerce question, you'd have to go to the raw events and apply that opinion over the data every single time. And that slows the process down really too much. An ad hoc question or an ad hoc piece of analysis should be able to be performed in a relatively expedient amount of time.
And that was the original discussion with Alex and Yali. So yes.
Yes. Yeah. It's a requirement. Like it's really a requirement of using our software that you need to have good data modeling. Analytics engineering is the kind of term that's been thrown around, the kind of generally accepted term in this space. The ability to model your raw event data into something more higher level, aggregated, and more meaningful than just raw events.
Yeah.
Continuing up the ladder in this way as you get over to sort of simple analysis. The aim here, again, using BI tools almost exclusively. So Tableau and Looker are two of the biggest ones, and Power BI as well. The ability to find out the main business KPIs, which we'll talk about a bit more in standard reporting, but then also find an associate set of, you can call almost like diagnostic measures. So like if a KPI has gone up and down, what are the sort of slices or other supporting metrics which might tell you why it's gone up or down? Include them in the simple analysis section. Your aim here is, like Peter quite accurately kind of went through, is you're trying to provide your users with like guardrails or swim lanes, so that like you've got all of these set of metrics that people are likely to want to look at, and these set of things that they want to filter the data by, or slice the data by, or group the data by. And you can use Data Studio or, like I said, Tableau set actions or something, or Looker Explorers, I think they're called, to enable people to do the slicing and dicing and do the filtering and changing data ranges, but they're within quite a slimline, contained environment, so that they can't go out of those swim lanes. They can't end up going too far down a rabbit hole that will mean that they don't actually end up getting the answer that they need, and they spend too much time looking at data that isn't relevant. So to do that, again, we see people aggregate up. So at this point, we start seeing tables which are things like a table by day, per channel, per landing page, and that way, someone can quite easily start looking at traffic by channel for the last 30 days. Oh, I only want to look at organic, and then maybe even include that by like landing pages. So like your table never goes, the table in your warehouse never goes more than, say, 4, 5, 6 dimensions, and then a few metrics: sessions, conversion rates, sales, all the whatever metrics you might have, signups, those sorts of things, so that the users on the front end can say, I want to look at conversions, I want to look at it over time, and I only want to look at it organic. How has that changed over the last 60 days? So that they feel that they've got some interactivity, they can drill down, they can filter, and they can split and compare and contrast, but they're not getting out of the guardrails that you provided for them.
Yeah.
So that's generally what we see at that
space. Jordan, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm wrapping up. Thankfully, this is the shortest bit, because the standard reporting is just an extra layer of aggregation on top again. It is just, your key business metrics. You create very, very highest level aggregate tables, which are literally like sales by day, signups by day, current churn rate, and things, and then you can configure these in whichever BI tool that you will be using. And there's very little flexibility, which you generally don't want these people to know, but you want them to be able to see that something's gone up or down and it needs addressing, and they know at least where to go for the next stage. So it is a lot on the user if you're using Snowplow Analytics, but what we love about this is the flexibility to do this. No matter what type of business you are, no matter what type of analysis or product analysis you want to run, or products that you have, Snowplow allows you to handle all of this, all in real time, all with 100% data access and data ownership. So it's always in your own cloud. Yeah, I think that covers the four sections pretty nicely.
No, thanks for that, Jordan. And for everyone listening, the reason I want to have Jordan speaking and have Snowplow represented, that they're a bit of a different sort of class of tool to the other ones, but in a collection, to show this sort of flexibility. With them, you get the raw data first, and you build aggregate data tables, and you choose your tool of choice, but you still need to offer a standard reporting solution, a simple analysis solution, an up analysis solution, and of course, you've got your deep dive analysis. I think with all the other tools, at some point, if you really want to process the data in your own ways, and you've built your visualizations off the raw data, you may end up switching to a Snowplow because you can then become more flexible still. And again, if you want to speak to Jordan afterwards, not today, like in the future as well, drop him a note on chat, or find him on LinkedIn. I'm sure we're very happy to talk through this in more detail with you afterwards. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Peter.
Let me take you off stage, and we've got one left here, GA4. And anyone's welcome here to agree, disagree with my opinions, because any Google fans may have disagreements with this. But for me, GA4, standard reporting, they appear some sort of dashboarding type function within GA4 itself. I am not impressed so far. I would say here go straight to Data Studio for your dashboards. And from the very brief looks and chats in the last couple of days, I haven't built a single Data Studio dashboard yet off GA4 data, and it looks to be a reasonable connection. And it'd be actually almost easier to use it through Data Studio than it would be within the interface itself. Because as for the simple analysis stage, you should be using the GA4 user interface here. I don't think it's fit for purpose right now. Examples of poor reports is you haven't got a landing page report, which should be matter of fact. You don't have page names as an easy to use dimension. Functionality wise, you can't filter on metrics. There's other examples going in my head right now. There's basic things you can't do, which I think you should do in a good web analytics tool, given how long the industry's been around for now. I'd almost think if Data Studio is actually as good connection as it seems to be, I was looking to create that custom UI in Data Studio as a preference, with the reports you need and the filtering segmentation that you need for light analysis, for your product managers, for your marketeers, for anyone else in the business who is comfortable with data, but isn't a data analyst themselves. Feel free to disagree here. Ad hoc analysis, they're building this GA4 Explore functionality with the freeform analysis, the funnels, the path, the segment overlap. It's a good start, but to me, the freeform feels like Catalyst Discover of 10 years ago, but not as good, which is disappointing. So this is the tool which should be your slice and dice any way you want to, and you can't do that right now. The one place where GA4 is great is, of course, raw data, the BigQuery integration. That's what a cynical part of me thinks the data engineer who built GA4 likes to use themselves and therefore focused on, because they built it for themselves, not for other users. Because again, you said earlier, you're not the user. They didn't quite get that memo. So deep dive analysis with BigQuery, they'd be great at. And I mean, in a way like Snowplow, you've got the raw data. You can then build your own data tables, aggregated, simplified data tables onto that BigQuery raw data, and then connect that to your Data Studio, Looker, Power BI, Tableau. You can basically do the same thing as you can do in Snowplow Intelligence, but with a UI put on top of it, which should be great, but isn't right now. That's my personal opinion. In the chats, I mean, there are features being added to it. Customize reports, the reporting workspace. Now, I know you can hide the reports, so you can do some customizations of which are shown, which I think is a great feature, but there's still a lot missing within GA4, in my opinion. Anyone else any thoughts on that besides Daniel? Yeah, the way it's designed, I mean, the whole event level access from GA4, the way it's all kept by events, I don't mind so much. And again, it's the same, I believe, as Snowplow. It's all name value combinations, especially track events and more information about events. I agree with that. Where I don't agree so much is that it seems to have gone a bit of ideology along it. It counts the fact that page views are different to the rest of the events. The start session is an event to mix with everything else. Bringing Daniel up on stage now for his thoughts on this. He's got some opinions to share, I believe.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Not too bad. Please share your thoughts, Daniel.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot since this popped into the calendar, right? Around the GA4 stuff. So I find it fascinating, and I'm not in any way a GA spy or an advocate necessarily. I just use it quite a lot. So I'm just thinking that, especially around the report customization, I've been asking the exact same questions around. I love this 4-tier approach and just how that fits into the simple analysis section. And I found already that using the kind of customized reports workspace, so kind of building your own reports and changing the stuff that's there and just setting your own versions for our clients works way better, especially when you can rename them to be like the marketing section and the whatever section. And the one thing I just wanted to say around the landing page stuff is you can not get around that. There is no landing page anymore, but if you just add the session start event against the page dimension, that gives you that the same answer. So it's quite I think on the chat, it's like it's a bit of a shift in the way to think about it, but it's there it takes pokery, it's just a bit less familiar. That's the thing.
And that's also frustrating, going, you've got the workarounds in place, so they shouldn't need to be workarounds. This should be, any analyst will say, well, I need this, this, and this, bake that into the tool itself, rather than use the workarounds. The landing pages option with your customer reports, that reminds me actually what it is, and you're right. Almost creating your own widgets and putting them together should be good. It depends just how many widget options there are and how much you can choose the dimensions and metrics within those reports. I can see how it can be quite useful. It just depends, I guess, if it does meet, to what extent it meets the needs of a non-data analyst with that tool, with those sort of the options within it. It should be quite good.
It's really interesting. Sorry, mate. It's really interesting, that divide of where you move from Data Studio to the GA4 UI now, because that has shifted from Universal, and I'm still trying to find like where that line is. So you can do some customization in GA4 and you can replicate the UI in Data Studio, but the API is lacking in GA4, but it's not in the UI. And this whole, like, it was in my head, at least, it was quite clear the step between 1 and 2 in UA, but in GA4, there's a big amount of gray area between this, and we're still trying to figure it out.
And that was my thinking about it yesterday, going, well, if Data Studio actually has got a good flexibility around the different dimensions and metrics, more than you can do within the GA4 UI, ignoring Explore, creating that custom UI within Data Studio, rather than creating the custom UI with your customized reports feature in GA4, could be the better option, which feels just annoying, but possibly valid. I mean, there's been a lot of chat back and forth there. I'm just going to try and scan through quickly. In the general chat. Nick, yeah, event parameters, dimensions, a translation. I think it could be partially just trying to get used to it. What if understanding custom is frustrating, but it come from someone who puts later on from Firebase, and the logic and translate as well to websites. Real-time data in ad hoc, I doubt it. It might not be. To me, that isn't a barrier. I don't need real-time or today's data usually as an analyst, most of the work that I do. Event level data into BigQuery from GA4 because 360 paid for feature. Jordan, I actually think you're wrong on that. I think they will keep BigQuery access free for everyone. I think they're adding more paid features on top of that. There was one I'd thought of, which I've never gone out of my mind, as a nice sort of paid for feature. Possibly it was the ability to, it was the way sessions were defined or processed, rather than the 30-minute timeout window, having different logic in place will become a nice paid for feature. But I think the events to BigQuery, it's such a standard part of GA4. I don't think it can be removed from the free version. I could very easily be wrong though on that. But it's a best guess right now. Lucas does not agree with the whole paradigm shift. I mean, it's a slightly different way of thinking about it. It's not that big a difference. I mean, it used to be hits and now it's events. There used to be different types of hits and now they're all events. Not a difference there. And Daniel just sort of said then the fact that BigQuery should remain free from what he's heard. We're about out of time. Thank you very much for coming on stage there, Daniel, and sharing your thoughts with that. Thank you everyone for attending this session and being a part of it and giving your thoughts. Just as time runs out, we've had a discussion, run the full hour. Not next week, next session in 2 weeks' time, which would then be the 20th of August. I've got 3 ideas here for topics. First one being, after last time creating an audit checklist against my core e-commerce tracking, doing that audit for both Universal Analytics and GA4 against the Google Merchandise Store, because we have access to their GA account in the demo account, and auditing all that, doing that possibly live, possibly pre-preparing, then going through it in detail. Showing off my page naming convention logic, again, using the Google Merchandise Store as the example for that. Or pulling out an old deck I've got and talking through how to resolve discrepancies in conversion reporting, e.g. transactions. If a transaction's in GA or any tool, don't understand your backend systems, what's the process you can go through to actually resolve that? So as always, doing a quick asking questions in the Q&A 1, 2, and 3. Could you very quickly just upvote your preference of 1, 2, or 3 for the next topic? I appreciate that very much. I've got a couple of ones in the meantime, but if you do it in the Q&A section, that makes it a bit better. 18 people, hoping for 18 different votes, just to make my life a lot easier, rather than the 4 votes I've got currently. I appreciate that if you can do it quickly in that Q&A section. Apart from all that, thank you very much for this. This recording will go live in the next, either this afternoon or on Monday, via blog post on the website. I'll get the registration up in 2 weeks' time again by Monday. Please do register again. Please do share the registration with your friends, colleagues, random strangers in the street. People you meet at the pub. If you're allowed to go to pubs right now with COVID lockdowns. on LinkedIn and social media, obviously, as well. Appreciate all your time, your lunches. Have a great day, great weekend. Chat to you all next time. I'll be in the general tables area for the next 10 minutes for moments of a chat to me. Thank you, Jordan and Nick, especially for being a part of this today. Really appreciated that and sharing your thoughts on your tools. Hope this recording is useful for you as well. And yeah, have a great weekend. Thank you very much.